Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Susie. Today I'm making mozzarella and tomato bread. This bread has very simple ingredients, which I'm sure you have in your kitchen right now. Very easy to make and it doesn't take that long. And the results are bread that are full of flavor and perfect texture, and you won't be able to stop eating them. So if you want to see how I made this bread, keep on watching and let's get to baking. We're going to start by measuring our ingredients. As usual, I'm going to use my scale to measure out my ingredients. And I usually do this in grams. Some recipes give you the measurements in volume and weight. This recipe only gives it to you in grams, but I'm going to do my best to convert it to volume. But if you do have a scale, I will highly recommend you use that when you're baking because your measurements are going to be more accurate, which will give you better results. And then I'm going to add the yeast, salt. All right, so I'm going to transfer my bowl to my stand mixer. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn on my stand mixer on low. Next, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and you should do this after the dough is well mixed and combined. All right, I think that is good for now. So a couple of things I want to note about this recipe is they recommend starting with 400 milliliters of water, but then add in 3/4 and slowly add in more water as needed. So you definitely do not have to use all of the water. So this is about how much water I have left. So just go ahead and add the water until the dough is nice and wet, and don't keep adding more unless you need it. So that's if the dough is dry, which I think is a little bit tricky. So I'm going to go ahead and measure this and see how much water I used or how much water was left, and I can give you guys my recommendations in the description box. So the dough is very, it's a high hydration dough. It's very sticky and wet. And as you guys saw, it struggled a little bit with sliding just when I added the oil, but it seemed to incorporate into the dough pretty well. So it is a very wet dough. So I'm just going to go ahead and form it into a ball in the container. So usually I transfer the dough onto my countertop and form it into a ball. I'm just going to go ahead and do that here like this. And I'm going to cover with plastic wrap and let it rise for about 1 hour to 2 hours, depending on how warm your house is or how much flavor you want. So I would say at least 1 hour, and I'll be back. While the dough is rising, we're going to start working on the toppings. We need 20 cherry tomatoes as well as a pack. This is a 2 or 8 ounce pack of mozzarella cheese. So for the tomatoes, we're going to go ahead and cut them into halves. All right, so now we're going to cut the cheese into cubes. The original recipe suggests using cheese ball, but I don't really have that. This is what I have. I'm sure this is also more easily accessible. So you can cut them however big or small you want. So while I'm cutting the cheese, I'm going to cut them into 4 different groups since we're making 4 loaves. That way we get almost equal amount of cheese on each loaf. When the dough is done proofing, go ahead and line 2 baking sheets, either with parchment paper or with silicone mats. So before you transfer your dough onto your countertop, you want to go ahead and generously flour your countertop because this dough is very sticky. This is what the dough looks like, very sticky, very wet. So I'm going to go ahead and carefully plump the dough onto the countertop. I'm not deflating the dough because we want to keep in all the air that we have, or as much as possible. All right, and it smells like beer. It smells so good. I'm gonna go ahead and add more flour to the top of the dough, and then I'm going to divide the dough into 4. I'm really tempted to use my scale, so I have 4 equal pieces. The recipe didn't really recommend that because you don't want to mess with the dough too much, but I'll do that. All right, so I have 4 evenly sized pieces. So what I'm gonna do to each piece is I'm going to stretch it to form a loaf, and then I'm going to transfer it to my prepared pan. I'm just gonna go ahead and repeat with the remaining pieces, trying to be careful not to disturb it too much. So you could shape it however you want. So those ones are kind of like rectangles, and that's just going to help maximize the space. You can definitely shape it into a circle, but that's going to take up more space. All right, so next we're going to go ahead and push our toppings into the dough. We're going to cover the dough with plastic wrap and let them rise for another 15 to 20 minutes. All right, so before we bake them, we're going to sprinkle or drizzle with some olive oil, and we're also going to sprinkle some oregano leaves, dried oregano leaves, on the bread. So you can sprinkle as little or as much oregano as you like. So before we bake them, a couple of things. Go ahead and arrange your oven racks to the upper middle and the lower middle position because we have 2 baking sheets that we're baking. We're also going to preheat our oven to 410 degrees F. When the oven preheats, we're going to bake them for 10 minutes each, and then we're going to swap them in the oven and bake for another 5 to 10 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and pop these in the oven, and I'll be back when they're done. All right, so I just took them out of the oven and it smells so good in here. I wish you guys could be here to smell it or even taste it. That would be better, right? So I'm going to go ahead and transfer the bread onto a chopping board, and we're going to see what they look like and what they taste like. All right, I'll grab this one. Oh, it feels so good. It's nice and fluffy and soft, and the cheese just melted beautifully. I wish you guys could really be here to try this. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and cut into it. All right, taste test. The bread is so fluffy. The flavor is amazing, as well as the texture. So good. This is so delicious and was so easy to make. You guys definitely have to give it a try. And if you do, please let me know how it turns out. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.